If you don't want to sleep well tonight, be sure to listen to all 3 of these horrifying tales of the unleashing of dormant spirits and the terrifying journeys with a dusty old Ouija board. It's shocking how many people actually have Ouija boards that are merely collecting dust in their closets, and most of them probably have never even used them. When I was 16, I first learned about Ouija boards. When I asked my parents if we owned one, my mother confirmed that we did, and she said it was hidden in the basement by the laundry room, in the small closet with a lot of my parents' old stuff. I was always a little bit superstitious, and I was intrigued by using a Ouija board for the first time. I asked my mother to help me search through all the games without completely destroying the organization of how she had arranged everything in the closet, and what do you know? She eventually finds this dusty old box that simply said Ouija. It had 2 hands holding the planchette, a triangle piece that moves around the board. My mother claimed they had only used it a few times. I immediately texted some of my friends to come use the Ouija board when I would be home alone later that night. I thought it would be scarier with no parents around. I had no idea what I was in for. My friend Anthony, who was 16 years old, had a car, so he used it to pick up Randy, my other friend, and they immediately came over. It was around 9 o'clock. It was definitely dark outside, and my parents were going away on vacation for a few nights. Jacob, my younger brother, was already at home, so I invited him to join us as well. We were going to play on the floor in the loft, which had been converted into my bedroom. We turned out the lights and then set a flashlight on the floor, pointing towards the Ouija board. Knowing what I know now, I really should have tried this when my parents were actually home. We placed our fingertips lightly on the planchette and began asking questions as the 4 of us sat around the board. None of us had ever done this before, so we asked simple questions. I asked the board to begin moving if someone was present. Adam asked, "Is anyone here with us?" And the planchette then for the first time started to move to the word yes. We looked at each other, and while I knew one of them was moving it, and I'm sure the others did too, we all played along and didn't break immersion. We took turns asking questions until I asked, "Are you a demon?" And the planchette moved again to the word yes. When the flashlight suddenly went out, we all stopped laughing and panicked because we knew that one of us was playing around. "Who did that?" Jacob asked, but it was obviously none of us. The flashlight had rolled away and was now in the corner of the room. When I repeatedly pressed the button to turn it back on, nothing happened. I turned on my lamp and noticed my friends' and brother's horrified expressions. I quickly made a joke that it was the most terrifying moment for the battery to die, but part of me knew it wasn't a coincidence. We stopped playing after that, and we even went to the backyard from my room because we were all terrified to be in the house at that moment. I had to sleep in that room that night though, and when my friends left and Jacob eventually fell asleep, I knew I had to as well. I felt really uncomfortable sleeping in the same room as the Ouija board, so I boxed it up and took it downstairs. When I turned off the light that night, I just tried to fall asleep right away rather than checking my phone for an hour, which is what I normally do to try and fall asleep. Just as I was starting to drift off into a half-sleep state, something in my closet fell over. I sat up and thought, what the heck was that? I jumped up out of bed and stood there frozen, staring at the closet door. I turned on the bedside lamp and went over to the closet. It was a small walk-in closet where I kept some of my clothes. I flipped the switch to turn on the closet light. Luckily, the light switch was on the outside of the door. I then looked down at the bottom of the door and saw what appeared to be 2 shadows cast by feet on the other side. I immediately jumped back and screamed for Jacob as I sprinted to his room, telling him what I had just seen and dragging him back to my room. When we got there, the light in the closet was still on, but there were no longer any shadows at the bottom of the door. I opened the door to find no one inside the closet, but there was something on the floor. There was no draft in the universe that could have knocked over the wooden box we saw on the floor. I built the heavy wooden box in shop class. I used it to store childhood mementos. How it managed to fall over and dump its contents onto the floor defies explanation. I slept in my parents' bed that night, the next, and for a week after that. I eventually started sleeping in my own bed again, but I'll never forget that night, and I haven't touched a Ouija board since. It wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I ever touched a Ouija board. It never really interested me, but it's funny what you will do to try and impress a girl. My friend Jose was talking to a girl named Julie who was into all things creepy, like exploring abandoned and allegedly haunted houses. One night, he invited me to go with them on one of these adventures. He assured me her friend was super hot in order to entice me into going because he knew I would never agree to something like this. I didn't have any exciting plans that night, so I decided, what the heck, I'd go. Jose got to my house around 11 p.m. Then we headed to a park to pick up the girls. I had met Julie a few times, but I had never met her bestie Jessie. I admit she was stunning with her red hair, nose ring, and full sleeve tattoo. The girls had already been to this particular house before and claimed it was high in activity. I had never heard this term before, but it didn't take rocket science to figure out what she meant. I laughed a little to myself, not really believing in anything paranormal. All this seemed a little ridiculous. Well, that is, until it wasn't. I asked Julie during the drive what was inside the large bag she brought, and when she pulled out a box with a Ouija board and a candle, Jose said, "Oh, that's the surprise." To be completely honest, I didn't think using a Ouija board in an abandoned house sounded like much fun, but I was there for the adventure, and really, I just wanted to get to kiss Jessie. Julie showed Jose where to park when we got close. The house driveway was blocked off, so we had to walk from there. It was a fairly dark street with no streetlights, an open field on one side, and trees on the other. We walked through some woods that led us to the backyard of the house. From there, Jessie guided us to the backyard of the house. Julie led us to the back window of the house, which she had previously climbed through. It was a bit high up, so we had to help the girls up, and we just climbed in ourselves. We walked around the house for a bit. All the furniture was still inside, but it was pretty run down. It hadn't been lived in for probably decades. There was definitely a creepy vibe as we entered the house. I don't get easily scared, but I have to confess that being there at night was really creepy. It would probably be terrible to be there alone because there was nothing but the sound of our footsteps on the creaky flooring. I wondered how old this house was and what the history was because it had some old photos of a family hanging on the wall that appeared to have been taken in the 1950s. Probably the couple who had lived there had passed away and no one was left to claim the property. To get things started, Julie began by lighting the 2 candles. Then she placed the board on the floor. She took the initiative and asked a lot of spiritual questions, but the planchette piece didn't move for the first few questions, so it was easy to see she was really into this. After a while of her asking if anyone was there, if anyone could hear us, it eventually began to spell out the word hello. The girls were serious and even told me to stop laughing out of respect. So I stopped grinning and put on my best serious face as I turned to face Jose. When Julie asked, "What's your name?" the planchette gently slid across the board to spell out Gregory. She then inquired as to how long you had been deceased before it began shifting the letters to spell out 30 years. For a moment, I didn't think any of this was true. We played along despite the fact I knew Julie or Jessie were moving the planchette themselves. But then, we heard a huge bang come from upstairs. Startled, we all jumped and the girls let go of the planchette. "Gregory may be out there," Julie whispered when Jose motioned that someone was up there. Jose and I insisted that we needed to leave because we were certain someone was upstairs. Julie and Jessie then put their hands back on the planchette and questioned Gregory some more. "Did you create that sound?" And we then watched in complete disbelief as the planchette moved to the word yes. Jose and I were now certain the girls were playing a practical joke on us and that they had someone upstairs trying to frighten us when we heard footsteps right above us. It was obvious that these noises were footsteps. Jose and I decided to investigate upstairs in the hopes we were being played for fools. The girls begged us not to go, but we went up the incredibly creaking stairs and went in the first open door. Inside, we discovered a bedroom with extremely deteriorated furniture and decor. Then, in the corner of the room, there was a door. We figured it was a closet. We whispered to one another that something was in the closet. The door was cracked open, and I put my finger to my lips to tell Jose to keep quiet as we listened. We both hurriedly exited the room after hearing a loud exhale from behind the door. We went downstairs expecting to see the girls still in the living room, but they were nowhere to be found. The candles, the Ouija board, and everything else was also gone, and the house was now completely dark. We quickly exited the room through the window once more and sped to the car. We didn't even hear them sneak out. When Jose repeatedly called Julie's phone, it went straight to voicemail every time because apparently she had blocked him. We immediately got in the car and headed home, and Jose never heard from that girl again. Jose and Julie had only hung out twice, and he had no idea where she lived or anything. They were nowhere to be found. We tried finding them, and it's like they never existed. It's also possible that they never left the house and were hiding somewhere inside, as the footsteps upstairs were from someone they knew. However, the more superstitious among you might think that we actually communicated with a spirit and that something more supernatural was occurring. You might even reach the irrational conclusion that the girls themselves were not of this world. The only thing I know for sure is that something was in that closet, and I never got that kiss. Before we get to the most terrifying Ouija board story, be sure to subscribe to the Horror Hub channel if you enjoy stories like these. In October 2018, my junior year of high school, I definitely was going through my horror phase where I was obsessed with anything eerie or spooky. My curiosity was piqued, so I placed an order for a Ouija board on Amazon. When it arrived, I waited until a night when our parents weren't home before using it, and I persuaded my younger sister Sarah to join me. We both put our hands on the planchette as we sat at the dining room table with the lights low. After asking the board a few questions, my sister and I both giggled since it was kind of funny and somewhat awkward. We decided to give up after a short while of waiting for the planchette to move from an unknown entity. My sister went to her room and I went back to mine for the night. I continued reading about people's experiences using Ouija boards online, and then I looked into the reasons why it possibly didn't work for us. I decided to give it another shot after discovering from others that nothing happened when they used Ouija boards for the first time. Around 2 in the morning, after my sister was already asleep, I returned to the dining room and dimmed the lights once again before attempting to use the Ouija board. I held the planchette in my hands while asking the same questions I did earlier in a quieter voice so as not to disturb my sister. I was waiting for the planchette to move, but it never did. Instead, I heard quiet footsteps coming from the upstairs, which may have been my sister if she had heard me down there. Then a muffled female voice that followed the footstep-like sounds came from immediately above me, but it didn't sound anything like my sister. Also, my sister wouldn't have been in our older brother's room, which was located over the dining room because he was away at college. The voice grew stronger as I got nearer to my brother's room, and I realized it was definitely coming from inside his room as I quietly went up the stairs. I approached the door and put my ear up against it because I was wondering whether my sister was playing a practical joke on me by lowering her voice to frighten me. I heard what appeared to be an older woman's voice. I was unsure of how my sister could possibly pull off that voice. I wasn't sure what was being said at first until I understood that the voice was repeating, "Grandma's here, Jimmy." It was my deceased grandma's voice all right, but she didn't sound at peace. As I opened the door and turned on the light, just as I flipped on the light switch, the bulb blew out. I felt every hair on my body stand up as I heard the voice again. "Grandma's here, Jimmy." I hurried to my room, locked the door, and buried myself under the blankets. I felt the room spinning as I tried to make sense of what had happened. It was too vivid for me to have imagined it, so after I collected myself, I prayed for protection before attempting to go to sleep because I never slept a wink that night. I have never touched a Ouija board since, and I never will. I can still hear that voice. "Grandma's here, Jimmy." Make sure if you break out your Ouija board tonight, you ask it which one of our horror stories you should listen to next.